Okay, so last week we discussed a bit the halachot of wine, about wine, what happens if a non-Jew touches wine. We discussed a bit what happens if a Jewish person who does not keep Shabbat does it in public. What happens if they touch the wine? Can you drink it? And we saw that we can be lenient in some places, although some poskim were quite machmir, they were stringent. And just to review last week, the conclusion, when a Jewish person who does not keep Shabbat, I mean, he violates Shabbat in public. So we saw, generally we saw three options. When he pours for you wine, the most lenient option said, everything is fine, there's no problem, you can drink the wine. Even wine that he pours for you. The most stringent opinion says that the wine he poured for you and the wine inside the bottle, both of them are forbidden and you cannot drink this wine. You can benefit from it, you can sell it to someone, but you can't drink the wine. And we saw a middle opinion, which, as we mentioned last week, that's quite a common halacha. Uh, I wouldn't say by everyone in Israel, but many people in Israel, that the wine that was poured, you shouldn't drink that wine, but the wine inside the bottle, that you can drink. And today we're going to discuss a topic which is similar but different. And here's a question. You have a friend, he's a non-Jewish friend, you go to the States, okay, to whatever you go to the States to visit family, to raise money, or just for a visit. Can you drink beer in a bar? Can you go to a friend of yours who's a Christian or whatever and have a shot of whiskey together? Okay, now here we assume that beer is kosher. Okay, we assume that beer is kosher all around the world, unless it has added things added to it. And the whiskey, let's say it's kosher whiskey, lemehadrin, it's not sherry cask, it has a star K and an OU stamp over it. But are you allowed to drink it together with the non-Jewish person? And that brings a question because we say, well, obviously it's kosher. So what is the problem with such a thing? And the answer is that actually we do have a decree of Chazal of drinking alcohol together with a non-Jewish person, as we'll explain soon. But the idea of this is that alcohol, as we know, brings people together. And okay, we will drink together, have a lechaim together, and alcohol tends to release different borders we put for ourselves, and we open the mouth a bit more, and we get closer. And Chazal were very concerned that if one drinks alcohol together with his non-Jewish friend, so then we say, okay, you know what? I have a girl and I have a boy. Let's marry them up together, and they'll get married with each other. Now we might think that that's how would Chazal think about such a thing? Why would Chazal think that something like that might happen? Yet we do find today, unfortunately, that being together with non-Jewish people in a close place of relationship creates also afterwards a marriage. And if you fall in love with someone, he's a nice person and I fell in love with him, so then they'll get married. And if they would never meet, okay, they aren't bad people, but we want to make sure that the Jewish nation stays the Jewish nation. So there might be nothing bad about your non-Jewish neighbor or your non-Jewish friend, but and that's exactly why Chazal said, don't become too close to them. Because as soon as there's an atmosphere that we can become very close to them, so somewhere, sometime people will for sure start getting married with non-Jewish people. As we said, we can certainly see today that it really happens. You live together, people in Europe, in the States, live together, go to the bar together, play soccer together, basketball together, they watch the baseball together and finish 2 pints of beer or four, and in the end people do get married. And so Chazal said, don't drink alcohol together with a non-Jewish person. As we'll explain soon, when does it apply? Before we'll ask when does it apply, we can ask a question: to what drinks does it apply? Okay, is it any important drink, just alcoholic drink? So the problem here in this thing is not a kashrut problem. Okay, the same beer, the same whiskey can be kosher anywhere else. The problem is drinking it together with a non-Jewish person or drinking it in his house, which really brings people close to each other. So the problem isn't kashrut; it's more of a intermarriage. Okay, and so what are the drinks that are forbidden? According to the Rama, only alcoholic drinks are forbidden. And we can understand that alcoholic drinks, alcohol, like as we said, opens the heart and makes us think a bit less. And only alcoholic drinks, they are the problem. That is according to the Rama. In the Shulchan Aruch, we have like a debate. And the Shulchan Aruch comes from the Rosh, which is actually interesting because it's more typical for the Rama, not always, but it's more typical for the Rama to be pasken by the Rosh. The Rosh, Rabbeinu Asher, is one of almost the last generation of the Rishonim. And he moved because he was, as we know, the Christians in Europe many times didn't like the Jewish people. And when they didn't like the Jewish people, they tried to kill them. So the Rosh had to escape, and he escaped to Spain, to Sfarad. And there he met the Rashba, and the Rashba viewed this relatively young rabbi. He looked at him very high, and he gave him very warm words. And the Rosh in the end became the rabbi of Sfarad, of Spain. So the Rosh has he brings the Ashkenazi psika with him, Ashkenazi halacha, but also the Sfaradi point of view. So the Rosh is interesting in the combining those two worlds of Ashkenaz and Sfarad. The Shulchan Aruch views the Rosh as one of the three major poskim he will follow, which is the Rif Rabbeinu Alfasi, the Rambam, and the Rosh. And usually when there will be 2 out of 3, he'll go according to them. Shloshet Amudei HaOraha, the 3 pillars of halacha, of teaching halacha, the Rif, Rambam, and the Rosh. So it seems from the Rosh that not just alcoholic drinks are a problem, but any important drink is a problem. Why any important drink? Because it's not just the alcohol which brings us together. It's, look, I'm giving you something important, something nice. It's not just a glass of water. I'm taking out, especially for you, I'm bringing out my mead. The mead has alcohol inside. But this drink made out of honey, and that's especially for you. So it seems from the Rosh that will be also forbidden. And the Shulchan Aruch also follows his psika. It is a debate in the Shulchan Aruch. Rather, when he mentioned about this honey drink, is that what we call today mead or med, depending on where you come from, which is alcoholic. You can say it's like beer or like any other alcoholic drink, or it's just a very important drink. And so that's the debate in the Shulchan Aruch. So some say, according to the Shulchan Aruch, any important drink is a problem. It could be even coffee. Okay, it could be even, I'm not sure if Coke is so important, but you go to a coffee shop and you pay for 1 cup of coffee between 10 and 18 shekels. So that's something important. Then you go to Starbucks and you pay $1 or $2 for maybe even more for coffee, and a can of Coke costs less. So coffee is important. So that's a question. We won't go so much into it. We'll assume that the main problem is with alcoholic drinks. Alcoholic drinks, and that's a question: can you drink alcoholic drinks at a non-Jewish house? And basic halacha is, and then we'll see a bit more details, that in the house of the non-Jewish person, that is a problem. Okay? At his house, that is a problem. If you buy, let's say, a beer in the bar, okay, you go to the bar or pub or whatever it is, you buy beer, take it out, or perhaps even take it to your house, that is permitted. Okay, so the problem is at the house of the non-Jewish person, even if it is your alcohol, okay, even if it is your alcohol, at the house of the Jewish person, that is a problem. And the reason is, when it is his house, you feel more connected. As we mentioned, it's not a problem of kashrut, it's a problem of being too close to a non-Jewish person, having a maybe a close relationship that might lead afterwards to intermarriage. Okay, so but if you take it out of the house or out of the shop, that is permitted. So if let's say you go to the States or wherever it is, and you realize you do not have wine for Kiddush. Okay, and we mentioned in the past, if you don't have wine for Kiddush, you can do Kiddush on beer. It's not so clear, but you can probably do Kiddush on beer. Even less clear, you can do Kiddush on Coke. It's mamash not so um, obviously, you can do Kiddush on Coke or coffee. Beer might be still fine. And you think, okay, so I need beer. So you go to the shop next to you, you have this pub in the corner, and you buy beer there. Beer is kosher. You take it out, you bring it to your house, you drink it on Shabbat. That is fine. Yeah, that is fine. Having it at your neighbor, having a lechaim at your neighbor, or in the pub, that is already a problem. Okay, so that is the basic halacha. Out of the house, it's fine. In the house, it is a problem. And we have sometimes exceptions when we say even in the house of a non-Jewish person, even then that is fine. Okay, even then that is fine. The first detail we will mention is if it's something which happens once, okay, once or twice, let's say less than three times, and the reason is something arai. Arai is something which it's not permanent, it's temporary. Okay, for one time having a shot of whiskey, so Chazal said, okay, that's fine. We are concerned, but there's a limit to how much we are concerned. So let's say you signed a contract, okay, with a friend, and he invited to a lechaim. So that happens once. It doesn't happen often. Something which is derech hara, it's temporary. This is permitted. Okay, this is permitted. If it also feels temporary, you don't sit down now. You don't make it into something. Okay, let's sit down now for whole hour and schmooze. But you just take a lechaim, a shot of glass, say lechaim, and that is fine. Yeah, that's fine. Um, because it's
Rabbi,
temporary. Yeah.
I have a question though. I have a
Mhm.
question. If the implementation of all of these rules are to separate us so that we won't get married and hitbolulu, why can't we have a drink with a guy? Like I can understand with a girl, you don't want to
Okay.
drink,
Yeah.
but
So
I
I'll
mean
say
maybe
two.
we missed
Yeah.
that part. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I wasn't paying attention, but
Yeah.
it, well, isn't there a difference between a man and a woman here?
So I'll say two options. The first answer I don't think is accurate. The second answer is the main one. The first answer is lo plug. As soon as Chazal had a decree, that's the Gzera and that's it. Okay, they didn't with a man or but the real answer is, okay, the real answer is that if you become too close to the family, okay, especially in the past, but even today, especially in the past, you don't often date a woman, a girl. You don't date a girl. You meet a father, and then you say, okay, I have a daughter here. Let's marry the children off together. That's in the past. So there's not so much of meeting the girl. It's more um, with the father. So it's between men. But even in our days, okay, even in our days where there is a dating time and sometimes a 2 or 3 or 10 year dating time, if you go to the house and have a lechaim together with him and it's something which is permanent, okay, it didn't happen once, so his daughter or his sister will come and you'll sit down and the mingling up might cause in the end intermarriage. And since maybe the chances of it happening isn't high, but the outcome of it, okay, the outcome of it is very bad. So Chazal said it's even like today. You take a car and drive. Okay, you say, okay, if I drive now in a street full of kids, if I drive now 30 kilometers an hour or 35 kilometers an hour, the chances of something having an accident is low. But if chas v'chaila, since it's a street full of kids, in our street, for example, okay, where kids can just jump to the road, say the outcome of it will be very bad and terrible. So you say, okay, for that, I take a step backwards and I slow down. So also here in Chazal, they said since the outcome of it might be so bad, so if people drink together, so as we say mentioned, so afterwards he has a sister and a daughter or whatever it is, and they might get married. Which, as I said, unfortunately, we actually see it happening. You can see how it can really happen. And he has a friend that comes, a neighbor, and so it just might happen. Okay, but we said if it's a temporary thing, this is um, permitted. Another option when we say it's permitted, and that actually might happen quite often. You go to wherever it is, out of Israel, and you go to an Airbnb. Okay, so an Airbnb, it belongs to the non-Jewish person, right? The house belongs to the non-Jewish person. But for now, for that day or two or week or however long you're staying there, this is your house. Okay, this is your house. So although it belongs to the Jew, but since you're renting the house, it is now your house, and you can drink alcohol in that house. Although it legally belongs to a non-Jewish person, but because um, because now it's yours, so you can drink there. You can drink there. Even if you another option we have, if you're a guest, okay, you have a conference and you have a co-worker who you're working with, and you're staying there, invites you for lechaim. There's a term called eva. Okay, eva. Chazal differentiated between becoming too close and now starting to fight with each other. And it's hard really to put the exact line between them and where's the border. Where do you say, okay, that becomes too close, and that is now, if I won't accept the whiskey, so he'll be very upset at me. Um, okay, but when there's a concern that if I'm now at his house and he says to me, okay, now here, have a Chaim, and if you won't agree, okay, won't agree, he'll be very, very upset. Well, don't you? He owns a distillery, and you say, what, you aren't drinking with me? That's so then you can have it. That brings us, if I mentioned the distillery, can you drink whiskey at the distillery? I don't remember the path, but I know there's a famous track that people do. I think it's called the Bourbon Track. You go to Kentucky and other places. Can you go there and go to kosher distilleries and drink bourbon? Okay, drink bourbon. So some people will say, Chas v'chalila, who can drink bourbon? You're allowed to drink only whiskey. Okay, but I think that's the wrong crowd, since I guess people were hearing the show. You are from the States, so you drink bourbon, right? But can you drink bourbon in such a place? And as we mentioned beforehand, if it's something temporary, so it's permitted. Okay, if you're just doing the track, you're going from one place to another place, and you're stopping there for an hour, having a small shot, letting the other driver driving, and you'll continue on. That is fine. But if every day you are becoming friends with that whiskey maker, so that's already a problem because that becomes something permanent, and that is a problem. Okay, so and that actually brings us to we can conclude with a famous story in the Jewish history. We read the Megillah, Megillat Esther, right? Megillat Esther, and Megillat Esther starts from this big party that Achashverosh did, and he invited all the Jews. And Chazal said that Jews had kosher wine, but still Chazal didn't view it as a good thing, something very positive, perhaps even something negative. And Chazal said, what was the sin of the Jews on that generation that they had the decree of Haman on them, and everyone was scared and terrified, and you can feel how the feeling of the Jews was. And the answer is that they drank from the seudah, from the meal of that wicked person from Achashverosh. And if you take a wider look at that event, it's not just a story of Purim. I think in Shul we talked once about how do we place Purim in the history? What other Tanakh books are connected to it? And we said that the books of Ezra and Nehemiah are more or less a parallel to the time of Purim. Not exactly, but they're more or less parallel. And if you look at the books of Ezra and Nehemiah, you see that the status of the Jewish nation was so low, okay, so low, and so many Jews intermarried with non-Jewish people, even Jews who made Aliyah, even Jews who were building Beit HaMikdash. Think of the Jews who were building Beit HaMikdash, could be that the wives were not Jewish. Okay, the wives were not Jewish. And how did that happen? It happened because they used to drink. One of the reasons was You live people live among the non-Jewish people, and they become friends with each other and work with each other, and then we start drinking with each other, and that's what actually happened when they started going to the land of Israel. First, many of them said, "Why should we go? It's good here. It's great here in Babel. It's great here in Shushan or in Paras or in Iran, wherever it is. We're having fun. We have great neighbors. We have good neighbors. They like us. We have good wine and whiskey we can drink together. Why to move to Israel?" And also, my wife is actually related to one of my neighbors. So how can I leave everything with my wife and family, or with my cousins, or my cousin is married to a non-Jewish person? So in that time, we could really see how drinking together with Achashverosh, as what we see as a one event, but it was actually much more than one event. What an effect it happened on the Jewish nation. Only 42,000 people made Aliyah in the beginning. It took a long time for people to make Aliyah. So sometimes we say, okay, the decree of Chazal, we don't really understand it, but if you look at the history here, we say, wow, that actually does have a very good reason. And today we have a debate because we can't always apply it to our style of life, and I'm not sure how much of us will now have a lechaim with our neighbor, but perhaps we do have, for every one of us, it's a mission of a question we can ask ourselves, and everyone can add a bit to it, is how do I strengthen the Jewish nation? How do I strengthen the identity of the Jewish nation? And each one can, maybe it means drinking l'chaim with our Jewish neighbors and bringing a chavurah together with them, having a kiddush club in shul. Whatever the answer is, perhaps that's a positive place we can take this class. And we will conclude here, as we said, so people can go to Mariv and